Episode 3 of Lock Talk. Jake O'Kane with you. We got a couple of gentlemen with me for those of you watching on YouTube. We got Joey in the bottom left. We got Dan from Sporttrade in the bottom right. We're going to get to him in just a minute and talk a little bit about what he's got going on there with their application. For us, great last week. We won our bet. We had to confirm it. We weren't 100% sure when we finished recording. It wasn't 100% done, but the boys are 1-0 on the stream. 9 days from football. We are 9 days from college football week 0, starting to really feel it. We've got 2 more weeks of college football previews coming. This week, we're going to talk SEC very briefly. I think we're still going to have a Big 12 deep dive. We'll see about that. But this week, we are talking NFC East with Dan here. We've also got NFC South. Joey and I will go through. And we've got a little bit of week 1 recap. And then there was another episode of Hard Knocks. It keeps getting worse for Packer fans. But regardless, let's start with Sporttrade. Joey, you're more familiar. I'm going to let you take the reins here and talk with Dan a little bit. I'll sit back and let you boys discuss.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks, Dan, for joining. This is fun. I know we met at the Sporttrade launch party just under a year ago, so that was an exciting time for your squad. And it was cool for me to be there as an outsider and a user, and seeing everything kind of come together and meeting a bunch of folks from the team. So really awesome, unique tool you guys have at Sporttrade. It's not a sports book. It's more of a betting and trading exchange. So think Wall Street meets sports betting, and they had a baby. So and I know you have a lot of fun things in the works.
Very graphic of you.
Yeah. You're entering some new states. Being here in Jersey, I was an early adopter, let's say, for the Sporttrade app. So I'll pass it over to you, man. What's cooking?
Yeah. First off, thanks, fellas, for having me. Big fan of what Lock Talk does. Obviously, we did some content together about a year ago. I mean, you described it pretty well. Basically, what we've built is a sports betting exchange. And if you don't know what a sports betting exchange is, as opposed to a regular sports book, what that means for you as a customer is basically much better odds, lightning fast executions, and tons of liquidity. So if you're unfamiliar with that concept, basically, we will show you exactly how much money you're able to get down on your bet right away. And because we are volume based, we only take 2% commission on winning bets only. That's it. Because of that, we're volume based. So we need a lot of people on the exchange. We need people to get in there and get the best price, which you can request, or you're generally going to get anyway, because we don't charge a VIG. So we partner with not only a market maker who is seeding all these markets, providing the markets, quoting the markets as well, but it also ensures that you're going to be able to get your bet down up to that liquidity point and even further on at just a different price. So it's a really awesome exchange. There are exchanges out in Europe and Australia. Obviously, Betfair comes to mind. Probably the most famous example across the pond and elsewhere. But this is really the first attempt to do this in the States the way we are doing it. There are other exchanges that started peer-to-peer. We thought it was really important to have market makers. That way people got their bets down, right? Like, you're never going to go to Sporttrade and not be able to get your bet down, which is huge part of really the entire thing. You want better odds, you want it to be lightning fast, and you want to be able to actually bet, right? The coolest thing, and we'll talk about this a little bit with the futures markets that we'll talk about coming up with the NFC East, is your ability to move in and out frictionlessly whenever you want. So an example of that will be when I talk about the New York Giants, who are priced ridiculously right now to win the NFC East and to win the Super Bowl. They don't have to win either in order to be profitable in Sporttrade, but we'll talk a little bit about that later on.
Okay. Awesome, man. Well, that's very cool. Thank you again for the intro there. It really is a truly unique app. And as you said, you're trying to really, start something new here in the States. So, for the people listening, I know, Jersey was the first state. How many states are you in, and what other states are, will you be in soon?
Yeah. So we're in Jersey right now. So if you're in Jersey, obviously check it out. We are moving to state number 2 within the next couple of days. Hopefully by the time, huge milestone. A lot of people spend a lot of time getting us to this point. I am just one who talks. I'm one who creates the content. The people running the exchange are working day and night. They are the true heroes. I just get to talk to you guys about ball. But it is a huge accomplishment. And hopefully by the time this comes out, people are listening to this, they'll Google sporttrade.com and see that we are officially launched in state number 2. I will say, if you're a Denver Broncos fan, get ready.
Oh, okay. Well,
We sprinkle a
we
little
do
tease
a
on the
couple
show.
Broncos fans, so we can definitely help spread the word. But that's awesome. So let's talk NFC East. Why don't we? I know you hinted at the Giants, but I'm a Giants fan. You're an Eagles fan. We're gonna keep this calm. We're just gonna be civil here tonight. We'll start with let's start with Dallas. Okay, what do you think?
Yeah, man, Dallas is the first one that came to mind for me. Dallas is probably the one that's making the most waves as far as the hype train goes, but what's new?
As always.
Those of us that were born in the 90s, we were born into the hype train, and it's really never gotten to the peak since we've been born. So it's one of those things that I don't know if I believe in. To me, 9.5 wins, very interesting number. 9.5 it's a common one this year for teams that seem like they should be really good. Super Bowl's 13-1 on them. I think Dallas is better. How much better, I'm not sure, but definitely they've got the weapons. They always do. It's going to come down to the quarterback, and we'll probably all have I don't know everybody else's opinion on Dak. I don't think incredibly highly of him, but in a perfect world, he is the guy. So it's hard to say.
All right. Yeah, I mean, 9.5, that's 10 wins is a lot in this league. But they have all the pieces, as we've talked about on the previous shows. But
it is what it isn't. But not 10 wins now, being 10-7 is just not a pretty number. And is 10 wins a playoff number in the NFC? You can exceed that 9.5, and if you're at 10, there's no guarantee that you're getting in at 10-7. It's
right.
It's gonna be really tough. And the NFC East is especially one that can pump out a few different playoff teams. We'll talk to see if all of them are valid playoff teams, but definitely two that people really like. So that's my thoughts on Dallas. Dan, I'm interested in your take. Obviously, being a Philly fan, probably the number one team that you look at across the division and see, all right, that's probably our number one target. Is that correct?
Well, I try to remove myself and be somewhat objective. In a previous life, I was a reporter, so I try to not let my midnight green colored glasses change my view too much. But you just look at the offseason they had, right? Some of their biggest additions, they bring in Brandon Cooks, Mozzie Smith, first-round pick defensive lineman. They bring in Stephon Gilmore. And to me, addition by subtraction, they lose Ezekiel Elliott, but they bring in Tony Pollard for now what we assume is a full complement of snaps. And you see how dynamic he is. You want him touching the ball 300 plus times. So I think that's an addition. The biggest thing for me is they lose Kellen Moore, who is basically a sacrificial lamb because Mike McCarthy can't seem to get over the hump, which, as you know, as a Packers fan, which as a Packers fan, has been a consistent theme since 2010 with Mike McCarthy. The offensive line is good if they're healthy. They're ranked 6th by PFF, but again, they can never stay healthy. And the three biggest position groups I like to look at, guys, when I'm trying to, I'm not a handicapper, so I'm not going to say handicap, but when I'm like looking at a team, when I'm lining up my bets, the three most important position groups, in my opinion, quarterback, offensive, and defensive line. Everything else, I think you can maneuver. Obviously, cornerback has become increasingly important. Obviously, wide receiver is increasingly important. And the Cowboys have both of those too, right? So the biggest question mark coming into the season is what's Brian Schottenheimer going to do now with Kellen Moore's toys? It's his 13th year as an offensive coordinator, which blew me away. If I'm being honest, had no idea.
There with no opportunity.
Well, I think it's a great question, but you have to go back and remember, like, his offenses have not been that efficient until he was with the Seahawks.
Right.
In 3 years with the Seahawks, they were a top 10 scoring offense each year, but he was fired, right, in the Russell Wilson tussle.
Right.
Russell Wilson won out. He wanted to, let Russ cook and all that nonsense. And then we've seen what happens with Russell Wilson. Pete Carroll ended up winning that subsequent struggle. So he gets moved out. But again, top 10 scoring offenses, 3 straight years. Let me see. I have it looked up here. And he hasn't been an offensive coordinator since then. 3 straight top 5 passing touchdown seasons with Wilson. And I honestly think at this point in Dak's career, right, the lower body injuries have mounted. The hand injuries have mounted. I
Mhm.
think his skill set is actually pretty similar to Wilson's at this point. So if that's a transferable thing from quarterback to quarterback, you've got the same offensive coordinator coming in. They have crazy offensive weapons. Again, Brandon Cooks, CeeDee Lamb. They've got Tony Pollard. Obviously, they have to replace Dalton Schultz, so maybe a step back at tight end.
Right.
I think this is going to be a really good offense again. And then on the other side of that, you look at the defensive line. They've got Micah Parsons. They've got DeMarcus Lawrence rushing the passer, and they spent a first-round pick on a defensive tackle. So as much as I hate to admit it as an Eagles fan,
Mhm.
barring another Mike McCarthy meltdown, which you can't rule out, you just can't.
Very possible.
There's just so much talent on this team. I mean, I look at 9.5, and you have to consider, it's 17 games, right? There's an extra game. 10-7, like that to me is almost a lock. And even if Dak gets hurt, which he did last year, they started 4-2, even though he missed, he played the first game against the Buccaneers, but then he missed, I think, the next 4 or 5 games after that.
Cooper Rush. Yeah.
Cooper Rush came in and got the job. So the 9.5 right now at Pinnacle is -184. It's +154 to the under. That is a lot of juice. If I'm betting my own money, I'm just not going to bet it, or I'm interested in looking at an alt total of 10.5 if you can find it at plus money, but at -184, probably not. But I would say if I'm just making picks here, I would say over 9.5 is easy. Penny also has them at +211 to win the NFC East. We'll talk about the Eagles. I think the Eagles are just far and away the best in the division. On Sporttrade, though, we have Super Bowl futures markets +1535. So I think you had mentioned earlier. I think O'Kane, you had mentioned earlier they were what, +13?
13, man. That's an extra for single 100 bettors. That's $200 for those of you that aren't experts in the field.
Yeah. I'm not either. I had to plug it into a calculator. $235 more if they were to go on and win in the Super Bowl. And again, if they just make the playoffs, that number is going to go up, and they will make the playoffs. And you could trade out of that for money. So I think over 9.5. If they come out of the gates firing and Philly stumbles, I think that's an opportunity to grab a Super Bowl ticket on them. But otherwise, I think I'm just sort of looking at the alt market, but that's kind of it. I think they're super talented. I think their coach sucks, frankly. And they're just sort of meddling.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up.
Before you do that, I want to just touch alt total 10.5 +115 on FanDuel, just as a alt total line. You get a little bit of plus chicken if you think they're 11 games. So interesting.
Ooh,
let me pull up the schedule real quick because I looked at this earlier.
I got it right in front.
I'm glad you're bringing up the schedule because this for all the NFC East teams, they do have to play the AFC East, which that's tough. Don't even have to talk about that too much. And the NFC West rather. So that's a good division, and that's tough travel too. So if they're going out west or
when you guys pull it up, just look at Dallas's December.
Yeah, it's a rough December.
Yeah,
it is.
I mean, Philly at Buffalo at Miami and Detroit. That's playoff team. I mean, it should be or pretty damn close. They're going to play you really, really tough. It's a brutal end stretch, and anytime you're playing the NFC Beast, you're going to drop the game to Washington. You're going to drop the game to a lesser team. It's just going to happen. Statistically, that's just going to happen. It's a brutal run there. Joey, what was your thoughts on the Cowboys here as you look them over? Are they worth the 10 wins in your eyes?
I agree pretty much completely with Dan here. It's tough, but when you do look at the personnel, the coaches, the coordinators, and the team, I mean, they have it all. So even and I know you said last year too, Dak was hurt and, Cooper Rush came in and still got it done. So they have all the pieces. And I think the Brandon Cooks signing, I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's like a sneaky, really good signing. He's been one of the more underappreciated, underrated receivers in the league for a while now. I kind of went viral on TikTok because of him last year. So shout out to Brandon Cooks, one of the better Lock Talk TikToks, because he was the number one guy in Houston and his totals were kind of low. But I think he's gone over 1,000 yards I don't know if he did last year ultimately, but he went like 6 or 7 straight seasons over 1,000 yards. So he's a
Well,
weapon.
he went AWOL at the end of the year.
He did do
So
that as well.
I'm not
But
sure he got there.
I think he was just trying to get out of the situation he was in. So maybe he's he's ready to go for Dallas. But opposite CeeDee Lamb, who's kind of on that elite of the elite, he's top 10 for sure. Is he top 5? That's arguable. But Cooks is going to steal some targets. So if you are looking at CeeDee Lamb props, keep that in mind. So whether it's receiving yards, receptions, Cooks will steal some of that, but also not having Dalton Schultz will help out CeeDee Lamb's case and Cook's case. So just things to consider when looking at receiving props. And I do think Tony Pollard, he's just set up for a great season. I don't know if I'm assuming he's 100%. I'm not looking up Cowboys news daily, fortunately. But all in all, man, Cowboys are a good team. I know the Eagles are kind of taking the shine. Last year, they were, Super Bowl runners up. Sorry, Dan, but Cowboys can definitely give them a run for the money for the division, which pains me to say. But
I think one of the things to remember, though, Joey, is this is America's team. It's America's betting team too. So you're never getting a true price on the Cowboys because the books know they know they're going to see a ton of action. So they're always giving you a worse shake than what you should probably get. So yeah, they may be what was it, plus 265 or whatever on Penny to win the division. It's probably more like 3-1, but you're not getting that because they take so much action on it. So another reason why I just don't like touching the Cowboys.
Definitely. Well, good.
Well, and you look at the Cowboys last year, 11-6 against the spread, but I think they started like 6-1, mostly in the games that they were heavily not favored without Dak, that they end up A, winning, B, covering. Definitely, like you said, the public perception is always going to lean Cowboys as far as the NFC is concerned. We talked CeeDee Lamb, 35-1, plus 3,500 offensive player of the year. Micah Parsons, he is the favorite, plus 500 to win defensive player of the year. I think he's a freak. I don't know if I love that though. 5-1 seems really. I don't think I'd be taking 5-1 odds on defensive player of the year. It feels
what. Okay, what's Myles Garrett?
That's a great question. He is also first, or he was second.
I wasn't sure if you had it pulled up or not. I'm saying
sure it's Parsons, then Bosa, then Garrett is mine.
It was a mix of those three all in the midst there. But yeah, move on to the next team. I'll pull up that. Let's talk birds.
Take it away, man.
Baby. Dan,
yeah, well,
let's just say
the Birds had a fantastic offseason, as they always have, because they are just plainly the best team in the National Football League in terms of building their roster. I'll run down the odds for you real quick here. They're minus 169 to win the NFC East on Pinnacle, plus 754 to win the Super Bowl on Sporttrade, and the over under 10.5 wins, minus 188 to the over and plus 157 to the under. I'll just tell you right now, I'm not betting either of them. I think that's just a ridiculous number to hang, but that's what's being hung by one of the sharpest books in the world. Major additions, obviously Jalen Carter, 9th overall pick, DeAndre Swift, Rashard Penny. They lose their entire middle linebacking core, both of their starting safeties, Isaac Seumalo, the right guard, Javon Hargrave and Miles Sanders, though I don't think Miles Sanders is actually much of a loss. I think they were happy to let him go for a myriad of reasons. Again, I go back to my positional groups, right? Quarterback, both lines. Top 5 quarterback, in my opinion, in Jalen Hurts. And I was not a Jalen Hurts guy coming out of Alabama. I didn't think he had the arm strength. I didn't think he had the vision to throw at a consistent enough level. And I didn't think he had the accuracy. But he has improved everything, including last year. I think he completed 66% of his passes, which was top 5 in the NFL. So I've been proven wrong. I'm thrilled that I was proven wrong. Speaking plainly, I'm a big Jalen Hurts guy. And most importantly, I think he's a guy you actually want leading your football team. And he's got a great makeup. And I hate to say this as a 34-year-old adult male, but I'm like proud that he's the quarterback of my football team, which sounds ridiculous. But that's how I feel. Offensive line, number 1 in the NFL. Defensive line, they lose Javon Hargrave. Yes. But they just come at you in waves. I mean, they draft Nolan Smith 31st overall, I believe, 30th, 31st overall. They bring in Jalen Carter. They still have Hassan Reddick. They still have, Josh Sweat. They still have Brandon Graham. They just come at you in so many different ways. Sean Desai, the new defensive coordinator, isn't going to do that many different things, I think. than the previous administration. He's more willing to try things according to camp reports. But, basically the game plan last year for the Birds was get after the quarterback with 4 and then play 7 deep. And they've got a really good secondary, really good cover corners in James Bradbury and Darius Slay. So I don't think the game plan changes that much. And maybe most importantly, guys, they didn't lose anything on offense. They lost their guard. And guess what?
Everything was pretty replaceable, I think. I mean, as you said, Sanders, who, I've been high on for a little bit now, but they replaced him with Swift and Penny, who are going to just come right in and ball.
Yeah.
So
and Kenny Gainwell. So I think the most important thing to note is last year, easy schedule, right? The Giants, the number 1 easiest schedule in the NFL. They the second easiest. Nobody got hurt last year. Like, the only person who got hurt last year was CJ Gardner-Johnson. He had a lacerated spleen, and he came back in like 6 weeks. Avonte Maddox had a toe injury. He's their 3rd corner. Nobody else was hurt on this team. They had unbelievable injury luck. They're not going 13-4 again. They're just not. Like, it's just not going to happen. No. And I just real quick want to run down the quarterbacks they played last year. Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Taylor Heineke twice, Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, a game they almost lost, Cooper Rush, Davis Mills, Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Ryan Tannehill, Daniel Jones twice, Dak Prescott lost, and Andy Dalton. So they played nobody. All right. When you're that talented and you play nobody, you're going to have a 99th percentile season, and that's what they did. So it's not going to happen again. I still think that win total and the juice is way too high, so I'm not playing anything there, and I don't think there's any value in the divisional price either. Is there an entry point, though, guys, that you would jump in on the Eagles to win the NFC East? That's what I'm curious about.
When the Cowboys win their first game and Cowboys fans go crazy and the market goes.
Yep. No, I totally agree.
Who's Dallas start off with? At New York.
I think they play the Giants.
They lose at Giants or if Dallas wins week 1 at New York and they win handily, take the Birds. That's your best spot, because I don't think it's going to get any better. I don't think it gets any better from where it's at right now, just because I do think they're flying. How do you fly under the radar at being the NFC reigning champs? I don't know. But like you said, the defense to me is the number one thing. As cool and as fun as your offense can be, the defense is what terrifies me. You went to a Super Bowl. You now have 2 guys in the top 10. One of them is, I believe, the number 2 favorite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year that are going to be in your front 7. Terrifying. And you had guys last year. Terrifying. It's such a good team. As much as we do talk about the Cowboys, Birds, man. All I can say is Birds.
I would just caution the defense is not going to be as good this year. They play much better quarterbacks. They just play like a zone. And every time they played a quarterback worth his salt, they were picked apart. 2 years ago, Justin Herbert, I think, completed like 95% of his passes, not an exaggeration, like an NFL record, 95% of his passes in Philly. And Sean Desai runs a lot of the same stuff on the back end. So again, they're not going to go 13-4. They're just not, which is setting me up for my surprise pick later on.
But, go in with low expectations. But before we move on from the Birds, how much do you factor, when looking at maybe betting lines, futures, all that, the Eagles losing both coordinators? How important are you? How important is that to you?
Well, the market doesn't seem to care. Mm-hmm. They're still one of the highest projected teams. I think Sharp has them as the second highest win total, second only to Kansas City. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, was here last year. He was a quarterback's coach. He has a great relationship with Jalen Hurts. Shane Steichen really separated himself, and the offense really took off when Nick Sirianni stopped calling plays. But who has a lot of input in the week to week is Ben Johnson. So he's not going to call the same plays, the same sequences as Shane Steichen, but the bones are still there. I think, again, just to go back to defensively, Sean Desai was not on the staff last year. Mm-hmm. So he's coming in with, while he has, similar structure on the back end, again, willing to try different things. That's where I think things may be a little different, but clearly the market doesn't care at all, because they're just looking at the roster and they're saying, despite the different coordinators, despite the more difficult schedule, we still think they're the class of the NFC, which is terrible. The NFC, I don't know if I can curse on here.
Absolutely. Go
the
ahead.
NFC fucking sucks. Okay.
We've said that every episode so far, and this is only third, but
bad conference.
Like, try to
It's
name the
so
top,
bad.
and everyone has done this, right? This is not a unique thought, but like when you're naming the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFC and you're throwing out names like Jared Goff
Jared
and
Goff is the
like
#1 thing that I think of.
Kirk,
Goff's a
yeah,
top 5 quarterback in the NFC.
like Matt Stafford, who's broken in half and who plays
He's
on a terrible
Kirk.
team. Like, it's kind of pathetic,
It
actually.
is, and we're not going to talk much about AFC on tonight's pod, but the AFC is so much better than the NFC.
They're
It is,
loaded.
but
It's like
Yeah,
it's
top
like
to bottom.
back when the East and West, when LeBron was in the East and the West was basically the rest of the good
Right.
NBA. And then it's like LeBron's gonna play Toronto and go to
Yeah,
the finals.
yeah.
It feels like Eagles could be the LeBron James of this generation of the NFC.
Yeah,
Unless the
I was
Cowboys
thinking
give them a
that
run for
too.
their
The
money.
former like West Coast, East Coast, and NBA, how dominant the West Coast was. It
Yeah.
it has a similar feel to it,
It really
for
does.
sure.
Well, if
I don't
Jalen
know
Hurts can go to
who,
10 straight Super Bowls, I will gladly call him the LeBron James of the NFL.
I was just gonna say who are we looking at as the LeBron for the NFC? But I hope it's Daniel Jones personally, and which is a good segue into the Giants.
Talk G-men.
Let's talk about them. 7.5.
I fucked that chicken last year. I'm not doing that shit again. I bet they
7.5. And this is a tough schedule. And Dan, as you said, it's a tougher schedule this year. NFC West teams, AFC
Yeah,
East
you
teams.
think the NFC West is really good? I don't know why. Half the division's awful.
Well, I think because you're just looking at Arizona, maybe, but
And LA. And do you trust Brock Purdy? I don't know.
So the Giants, I think, are in Arizona. I have to get their schedule up there because I'm on.
They are in Arizona week 2.
I trust the rest of their team enough in Arizona. So that's tough after probably a tough Cowboys game week 1 traveling to Arizona. I always factor in travel. You know, I'm a sucker for those bullshit trends like West Coast teams traveling East Coast at 1 p.m. are 2-14 the last 16, against the spread, whatever. So you know what I'm trying to say. The Giants have a much tougher schedule. I'm not going to touch the 7.5 over under. I'm not touching the win total. But I do think they squeak out 8 or 9 wins. I think they go.
Ooh.
I think they go 8-9 or 9-8. I'd love 10+ wins, of course, but I'm just being realistic. Long season, injuries pile up. Giants always battle some bullshit injuries. And knock on wood, everyone I think looks pretty healthy right now. They figured out the Saquon deal. It's great. I'm really high.
Kinda.
For a year.
They kind of figured it out. He kind of
figured it out for a year.
Yeah, they figured it out.
Yeah. I'm high on Jalen Hyatt, for sure. I think he has a really high ceiling. So I don't know if he's going to be elite. He may never be elite, but I think his ceiling is so high that he's going to be a playmaker. So I'm not going to whip up any like rookie receiving yard props or anything right now, but definitely something I'll be looking at in the next few weeks. But the team, putting betting aside, the team as a whole, they're coming off, I just think also year 2, same coordinators, year 2 at Dable and Shane. I'm really excited about that. So there's nothing new coming in that's like, oh, well, we have to figure this out. We got to take some time to get used to this, guys, whatever. So I think they're gelling and they're feeling good. But it's really the competition that's the toughest thing right now. So I'm trying to be level set my expectations going into this season. So I don't want to be too high or too low.
Well,
Dan, you can crush his hopes if you want to. Go nuts.
Do it.
I'm actually going to buoy his spirits, surprisingly. The Giants plus 961 to win the division, I think, is the biggest value in the NFL divisional market. Plus 961 is penny. To win the Super Bowl, we have them at plus 6,027.
I knew you were going to be great tonight, Dan. I knew it.
You know what? I'm really selling it hard.
Yeah.
Those counting at home, that is plus 4,800 on FanDuel. That's a crazy swing.
And the NFC is trash.
And the NFC is trash.
I mean, you'll find, honestly, like whatever, I work there, they sign my paychecks, but like our odds are just so much better than FanDuel's. Like if you care about odds 100%. And you care about like making more money, like you gotta bet at Sporttrade. So I actually have them. I'll save that. I don't want you to get too excited just yet. I'll work through my rationale, Joey. So
Appreciate it.
plus 961 to win the division. Do you have any idea what the Rams are to win the NFC West? The Rams, who are probably the worst defense in the entire league. Just take a guess. Take a guess what they are to win the NFC West. An inferior division. Plus 988.
Ooh.
One of the worst teams in football almost has better odds to win their division than the Giants. Now, I think that speaks more to how good the Eagles actually are, but the Giants made the playoffs last year. Again, in a season in which the Eagles had like a 99th percentile season where everything went right, nobody got hurt. There's absolutely a chance for the Giants to do something here, right? And at basically 9.5 to 1, I think why wouldn't you take a chance on that?
Yeah, and look, they're going to be competitive as shit too.
Yeah.
With
they're
year 2 of Dable and everything. This is not the Joe Judge Shermer years. Fortunately for me, unfortunately for you, Dan. But it's going to be
Joe Judge is a North Penn grad from where I grew up. I grew up right around the corner, so we're pro Joe Judge. Except
we got a couple of Joe Judge shout outs on the pod tonight, but
check that on go board.
Right now, I think NFC East. I think it'll place the final standings will be very similar to last year. I'm glad you're seeing the value in the Giants to take the division, but I do think ultimately it'll be Eagles and then the 2 wild cards. They're Giants and Cowboys getting wild card spots. Again, the NFC is trash. We don't have to beat a dead horse, but
But I think continuity is king, right? You bring back your quarterback, you bring back your running back, you add Darren Waller. You traded nothing for Darren Waller.
Yeah, good offseason.
Both coordinators are back, right? Mike Kafka's back. Wink Martindale's back. Dable may be the top 5 coach in the league.
Yeah.
Right. I think they've got kind of a brutal start. I've got their schedule here. It's at Arizona, at San Fran, home against Seattle, at Miami, at Buffalo. But if they can get out of that 2-3, I think there's a real chance for them to go on a run. Yeah. Because the C's kind of part after that. It's Washington, the Jets, who I am super down on this year. I'm not a Rodgers guy, never have been, never will be. Wow. But not a Jets guy. We can talk about that when we're done with the end.
That's okay. Totally fine.
Yeah. And then Vegas, Dallas, Washington, New England, Green Bay, New Orleans. That's a 6-2 stretch for them, I think.
Yep. Which
gets them to 8. And then they get the Eagles, the Rams, and then the Eagles again to end the season. And maybe the Eagles aren't playing in week 18. So I think there's a realistic path here to 10 wins. So I'm not only on them to win the division at 9.5 to 1, 961 to 1. I'm on their alt total 8.5 wins at plus 200.
Oh, I love it.
Let's go. Blue. Big Blue. Let's ride. Come on
9
now.
and 8. You're maybe convincing me to take something. And I don't want to.
He's going to take it. Let me just tell you, he will take it. I promise.
Do you remember, Joey, do you remember last year? Everybody was sitting here saying the Giants might win 6 games. Might win 6 games. Same spot. Now you're saying they might win, 7 or 8? Nothing has changed about this team except they have another year of togetherness.
Yeah.
Ride the wave.
It's a long season, too. It's a long season, toughish start, but I'm glad you brought up that stretch because, I'm seeing the Raiders November 5th. Come on.
They suck.
Commanders.
I think the Raiders might be one of the worst teams, too.
Oh, yeah. I've said that. I think the first one we were recording, I was like 4-13, 3-14. Caleb Williams.
Yeah, basically.
I've already seen the photoshops of him in the silver and black. So, but I'm glad you think that way about the Giants, man. I'm just super excited as a fan, but from a betting perspective, I won't touch anything just yet. But for all the people, take a look at that on Sporttrade. There's going to be some fun futures, a lot of value on the Giants. So,
yeah. And one thing I did see too on the Giants, actually, I got a prop for both of you, for both of your teams that I want your opinion on. We'll start in New York, Joey. I found Saquon Barkley 10+ touchdowns is plus 170. He had 11 last year. Obviously, he's battled injuries every year, but if he plays 15 games, 16,
there's nobody behind him.
There's nobody there. That was going to be my next point. He's very similar. I look at Nick Chubb the same way. There's nobody behind Nick Chubb. We're not talking AFC North this week. and I think we forgot to even touch on it, is nobody's behind Nick Chubb. And I love these.
Right.
I love the props of stuff when we don't have to worry about split carries, because as we move on, I think split carries. I actually do think the wave of the 2 running back system has pulled back a little bit. Obviously, in Green Bay, we're doing it. We're doing it pretty much to the
now the Jets too,
and then the Jets too. But I do think teams are pulling back. But Dan, the one I had for you, a number that stuck out to me, actually, I guess it's 2 bets. A total that stuck out to me was A.J. Brown, 1,050 receiving yards. Seemed incredibly low.
What are the odds?
That was, I
like
believe,
minus 500.
And
it was minus 110.
I'm gonna look it up again because I double checked it.
Well,
Yeah.
whatever the limit is, bet it, because I got news for you. Unless there's like a Dark Knight Rises situation underneath the Lincoln Financial Field, like that dude's going over 1,050.
It's gone up a little bit, so I must have looked at it before, but 1,125.
That's what I'm getting. I'm seeing minus 130 for over
12 on that.
1,125 and a half.
But the one that I looked at outside of that is, to him to have 1,500 yards is plus 650.
So he got there last year, barely.
I was betting his total through the whole way, because he mentioned in one interview, he's like, well, I kind of want to get to 1,500 yards. And I was like, over.
I was high. As soon as they traded for him, I was like, this sucks.
He's an animal, dude. Yeah. Absolute animal.
Well, I wouldn't put a ton of money on that. 1,500 yards is hard to get to. And you have to think Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith had a great year last year too, and now he's in year 3. He's going to get more targets. Mm-hmm. Dallas Goedert missed like 4 games last year.
That's
so
right.
If he's healthy, he takes targets away from A.J. Brown too. They signed, can't pronounce his name, guy from Atlanta, Zacchaeus, to be a 3rd wide receiver. He may take targets away too. I don't know. You mentioned teams are moving away from the running back situation. They've got 3. Yeah. They've got Kenny Gainwell, Rashard Penny, and DeAndre Swift. I mean, who knows who the hell's getting the ball.
Swift will probably take a lot of receiving targets too.
And Jalen Hurts will probably score more rushing touchdowns than all of them combined.
That was the question I kept in my notes too, is Jalen Hurts, his rushing total is 700 yards. It almost felt like an almost perfect number. What
did he have last year?
I think he had 7. I'll pull it up here.
Because so many of his carries are 2-3 yards at a time. Right. They don't really design that too many runs for him. So I would probably take the under there. Actually, Connor Allen, who works for BetSpert, put out a really good study of, I think, like 60% of unders hit every single year, season-long totals.
Yeah, 700
posted by them.
Yards for Hurts last year. And I feel like as his passing gets better and more refined, and he is now the money man, you don't think they're going to probably pull back the reins a little bit? They probably let him go just to figure out, hey, are we going to end up paying this kid? Let's put some miles on his tires, and now maybe he'll pull back. I don't know. That's just what I thought. When I saw the number, I was like, 700 feels like a lot.
It depends on for me, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
off. No,
you're
good.
For me, I'm just like I'm a price sensitive bettor. Obviously I work at an exchange.
Sure.
So if the number is right, if it's minus 108 or like minus 106 or something like that, or it'd be great if it were plus money. I doubt it, but that would interest me. But I mean, these markets are so juiced, man. It's tough to bet into him, and 700 is a tough number. I think he goes under for the record.
Yeah, and now the number's up to 725 actually, and it's minus 112 on FanDuel, because I just have that app up right now. So, yeah, tough on that. I just wanted to get your perspective on that.
What's the under?
That's the under.
That is under. Okay, gotcha.
Minus 112, 725 on both over and under. That looks like they've got. FanDuel's been putting out a lot of minus 112 for stuff. Doesn't look like they're juicing their props nearly as much as they have in the past, which is, I guess, okay, but I'm sure the lines are just skewed. So they're going to get their nut, so I'm not too worried about it. That's not exactly
right
true for the most part. But other than that, in the NFC East, we got the Commanders. I mean, I don't have anything to talk about for the Commanders. They've got nobody in the awards, like candidate sections. They've got Actually, the only thing I liked is I like Terry McLaurin over receiving yards. I do it on a regular basis. I don't know how good he'll be with Sam Howell. I have no idea what to think of the Commanders. Maybe you guys have more of an opinion than I do.
I don't have much, but I think, take it game by game with them is probably the right move. Look at the scary Terry props. Who knows how long Howell's going to last? Is he their number one? Is it official? It is, right?
I think it is. He wasn't part of the I know Richardson was confirmed, Stroud was confirmed 8 days ago. Jacoby's his backup, so if Jacoby does it again, Dan, for you, Jacoby Brissett hit his passing yard total over in every game except for one last year. He was the cash cow for the last 2 years in that, but yeah, I don't really foresee that. Dan, what are your thoughts on the Commanders for now?
They have a new owner, so everything else is gravy. Nothing else matters this year. You finally burned the witch. Got him out of there.
Through. We talked about
that was the biggest win.
Videos coming around. Having Magic Johnson videos be the new word that gets out about your owner is just the best, especially.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just give you guys the betting lines. Plus 1509 to win NFC East, according to Pinnacle. Over under 6.5 wins, plus 113 to the over, minus 134 to the under. On Sporttrade, they're plus 10,791 to win the Super Bowl. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you not to bet that one. The defensive line is great. Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, we get it.
Right.
The offensive line is not great. And then who the hell knows what Howell could be. We know they like Brian Robinson. He was a bell cow for them the last half of the year last year. They have Johan Dotson for Penn State fans, which I'm not. Scary Terry seems to underperform every year, but that's a direct correlation to how bad his quarterbacks have been. Again, I'll say his name again. Connor Allen put out a really good grid of every look-ahead line for the entire NFL season.
Okay.
Washington was favored week 1 against Arizona at home, week 5 against Chicago at home, and 0 other times.
Ew.
So they are favored twice this season, and that is it.
They're favored against Chicago. That better not be a Thursday night game, because it was last year, and that was a tough watch for everyone. That was like when the Thursday night game started to suck, and everyone was like, seriously, we got to watch.
Well, I hate to tell you, I see an 8:15 kickoff, so I'm thinking that's Monday Night Football.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
We're going to, but we'll throw some bets around to make it a little bit more interesting. But I believe Caleb Williams is a DC native, DMV native. Tank for Caleb Williams.
It's Thursday night again.
Yes.
It's Thursday night again. It's a short week.
Let's go, boys.
Now,
what week is that, though? Because they can start flexing Thursday night games after week 5 this year.
Yep, and that is week 5.
Yeah.
So
it's out. Sorry.
It's not starting week 5. Oh, man.
Oh, no.
Guess what? That game's not going to be on.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Justin Fields is going to rush for 180 yards in 2 games. They're like, well, we got to put him on.
Yeah. But there's a lot of hype around them. But, Caleb Williams. It might be a tank for Caleb Williams, I think. It's going to be between Vegas.
Yeah, it could be.
Washington.
Well, and it seems like Washington, does it feel like the enemy is kind of the move on from Riverboat Ron? Because Ron's got to be close to retiring.
They're already complaining about how hard of a coach he is. It's ridiculous.
So
Washington just can't get out of their way.
Right.
The C words.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's not much else to talk about the Commanders, that is, but there'll be some interesting Magic Johnson pictures and tweets too. If you don't follow Magic Johnson on Twitter, they're always very just
you'll get a recap every Monday.
A total recap, just very bland. Lakers played a great game tonight. Yeah, okay, Magic. But interesting. So screw the Commanders. Dan, man, best of luck to your Eagles, but it's gonna be a dog fight.
Hey, it's a marathon
on. So this is gonna be it'll be a fun season, I think, as long as the 3 Cowboys, Eagles, Giants are competitive. The division is going to be very interesting for the entire year. And the Commanders can even sneak in a win or two to, I know they gave the Eagles their first loss last year. I think it was week 8 or 9.
Yeah.
You never know. Divisional games are always, they tend to be crazy. So But yeah, any final words on NFC East or Sporttrade?
Neither, actually, but I do have a question for O'Kane here. We were talking before we record about my time in Green Bay. You're a Packers fan.
Yes.
I covered them for 4 years. I need your Jordan Love analysis and or your feelings now that the divorce has been finalized.
Yeah, I mean, I had my little bit of a rant week, our first episode, so I won't go too much on the Rodgers side, but watching Jordan Love, he missed wide open Luke Musgrave, so it went 30 yards. That's the one thing I can't get out of my head. But he didn't do anything that I didn't expect. Jordan Love is going to be, in my opinion, a pretty vanilla quarterback, which is not with the team, with the pieces we have. We maybe just need a vanilla quarterback, and the NFC North is trash. So it's one of those things that we're going to take it. I think, like Joey said with the Commanders, and I cannot believe I just fucking compared ourselves to the Commanders.
Oh,
not a great sign.
We're going to take it week by week, okay? That's where Packer fans are at. I'm not on the he's going to be incredible. I was very vocal about I have not seen him do shit in a actual game outside of garbage time against your Eagles, which I fell asleep. I took an edible during the first half when we were getting our asses kicked, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna pass out, and I fell asleep, and I woke up to Jordan Love throwing a touchdown. I was like, what?
There you go.
World did I wake up in? But
no, great game.
It was. It ended up being a much better game than we thought.
Hey, he hit Christian Watson on like a 50-yard bomb today.
That's the other thing, and I think that's just a broad thing. Can we stop? And we're never gonna. But the practice clips. I'm so sick.
It's just to build up the excitement this time of year. I give in to them so much.
Really good in shorts and snuck his way onto a D3 roster as a quarterback at like 5'9". This guy. I mean, you can sneak a lot.
Where'd you play?
Shorts. UW.
St. Lawrence.
No, not Lawrence. Not Lawrence. A step slightly above Lawrence, but yeah, Stevens Point for.
Oh, of course, UW Stevens Point.
Yes, go Pointers. But
yeah,
but Dan, thank you so much, man. It was really cool to meet you.
Yeah.
And, we've been telling everybody you're on once before the season. We got to have you on during the season. We'll go through a week, and maybe a week that the Birds and the G-Men face off. We'll figure something out.
Oh,
I love it. No, I love it. Thanks, guys.
Possibly, I don't know.
No, you'll come to find I'm not much of a gentleman.
Now,
so we'll see.
Yeah, Joey, right up your alley then. But
for sure. Well, Dan, man. Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon, man. It's very cool what you got going on. Everybody check out Sporttrade. It is on the App Store. And
2 T's in the middle of Sporttrade, and the second T is not capitalized.
There you go.
Very true. No, thanks, guys. Pleasure's all mine. We'll talk offline about some spotted cow.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, man. Thank you much.
All right. Appreciate it, Dan. Thank you. For the people listening, Sporttrade, download it if you are in New Jersey and soon to be in Colorado. Stay tuned.
Yeah, that's the other thing. There are caveats to it. There are only 2 states that can do it for right now. But
yeah,
big shout out to Dan. Thanks again for him.
Big shout out to Dan, and they'll be in more states soon. The exchange. So,
well, we talked,
and then give him a follow on. I think he's at Sporttrade Koob. I'll look him up now. He's a great Twitter follow, and you'll see some more Sporttrade people as well once you follow him. So at Sporttrade_app is the app's Twitter handle. And then he is at Sporttrade Koob. Both great follows. And for the Jersey people, download it. Get going with the exchange. Get trading. It's a fun time. And for the Colorado peeps, they'll be in there soon. So we appreciate Dan. Let's move on to the next. Take it away, man.
Let's talk NFC South. Get this thing in and out of here. About 15 minutes. NFC South and a brief touch on the SEC. Joey, we've talked actually a little bit about the New Orleans Saints. I think we're both kind of interested in this team. Maybe not excited. It's probably not the right word. How can you get excited about a team that you really don't care about? But 9.5 for a win total, plus chicken. Super Bowl's 40-1. Division plus 130. They are currently the favorites to win this AFC South. I'm just going to run through some award candidates. Derek Carr MVP's 30-1. Olave Offensive Player of the Year. Love this one, 50-1. Coach of the Year, Dennis Allen. Don't hate this one either, plus 2,000. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Brian Bressie, plus 5,000. For me, I got Chris Olave over 5.5 receiving touchdowns is my favorite. I think that was more of a quarterback issue, not a Chris Olave issue getting in the end zone last year. Joe,
Right.
your thoughts on the Saints going marching?
What a weird division, man. But
as weird as it gets.
As weird as it gets, and the NFC is still trash. They don't make the NFC any less trash.
I agree.
I think they're sneaky. We talked about this before. I kind of like the Derek Carr trade. So I think Olave year 2, I'm very high on him, and his season total is at 1,025.5 too. At minus 130. So a little bit too much there, but in terms of the minus 130. But you can shop around and look for that. I think he's going to fully break out. He might be pushing. I think he's going to go over 1,200 yards this season. Granted, he's healthy and everything. I think the Carr and Olave connection is going to be great. I think Jamal Williams is going to be great until Kamara comes back. Defense is pretty good. Like it's a sneaky good defense all around. And I think, what are they now, year 2, Dennis Allen? So, they're kind of getting used to that whole thing. Sneaky team that nobody's really talking about and paying attention to, which I feel has kind of been the case since Drew Brees retired.
Sure.
But I'm just going to bring up the division odds here quickly. I know you said it before.
Yeah.
The total's at 9.5.
9.5 is what I had on there, and plus 114. This is the one thing, and I think Dan mentioned it with another team, quarterbacks that you play. The Saints are the poster child for playing garbage quarterbacks, similar to the Eagles last year. Let me run through them quick. We get Tennessee. Who the fuck's going to play quarterback? We don't know. Carolina, you get rookie Bryce Young. Green Bay, Jordan Love, who knows? Tampa Bay, maybe Baker Mayfield. Mac Jones, CJ Stroud. Jacksonville, going to be an okay one there with Lawrence. Indianapolis, Richardson. Chicago, Fields. Cousins in Minnesota. Atlanta, Detroit, Carolina, New York, Giants, Rams, Tampa. They don't play good quarterbacks going through this whole schedule. 9.5 wins at plus money. If you believe, as I do, and I think you do too, this is a good bet. This is for plus money. It's not a horrible one to be hung up for a whole year.
It's not. I'm definitely not gonna take it, but as we were saying before, 10 wins in the NFL is very tough.
It is very tough.
But I think I'm kind of expecting like a very solid season from Derek Carr in New Orleans. I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, kind of one of those surprises of the league this year. So I do want to talk another prop quickly. I saw you listed Olave over 5.5 touchdowns. I think he's going to get more touchdowns this year. I'll bring up what he finished with last year. I think only 4 or 5. I had him in fantasy.
It's very, very low, but I don't think, like I said, it wasn't Olave's fault.
Right. I think, again, I'm expecting him in Carr to get along very well, and I do think that he will score more this year. So that's a number. Yeah, he only had 4 touchdowns last year, but he played 15 games. He went 72 for 1,042 and 4 touchdowns. So I think he's going to take that next step forward, closer to like 1,300 yards, some more receptions. And I think you're looking at like 6-7 receiving touchdowns. So definitely a prop to keep an eye on.
He feels like the best up-and-coming receiver, like the step below Justin Jefferson, that class below him. He's that kind of guy. I'm not saying he is.
And obviously he's tied to, like him and Garrett Wilson will always be tied together and compared, teammates, all that at Ohio State. And Garrett Wilson was rookie of the year and had a stellar year too. But Olave was kind of, with Jameis and Taysom Hill and whoever the fuck threw the ball, put up a really good rookie season. And it's definitely part of that next wave of receivers.
Shout out Andy
we give the guys who aren't talked about enough around the league. We give them some love on this pod. So Chris Olave is that guy.
Chris Olave is definitely that guy. Shout out also one of the quarterbacks there, the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton. Let's talk about the team that he's on now. He is now the backup quarterback for the Carolina Panthers.
That's right.
Featured on Hard Knocks last night. 7.5 win total for Carolina. Super Bowl odds 60-1. Divisional plus 360. Brian Burns, Defensive Player of the Year at plus 3,000. Frank Reich, Coach of the Year, plus 2,500. And Bryce Young, second favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year at plus 400. The one bet that I popped up in my head, and I think Dan, I forgot to mention to it before he left, I like Miles Sanders under 925.5 yards. I'm not very high on him at all. It's the one I had listed on here. I personally am not high on Carolina at the moment. I liked some of the moves they made. Obviously, you go get Thielen, but this team is still at least, and you got a good defense. But I'm just looking at their schedule, and I'm not seeing the wins that they need to get there. I don't like Carolina to be there this year. I think they're moving in the right direction, but a bad Carolina team won 7 games last year. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah,
because of how bad the AFC South was. But the AFC South's gotten better. Atlanta's gotten better, and you can definitely say that New Orleans has gotten better. They're probably going to lose 3 out of 4, 4 out of 4 of those games if you're Carolina. So I'm not a huge fan. What are your thoughts on the Panthers?
I think it's going to come down to the wire for them. I think they'll be, obviously very competitive, and I think Bryce Young is definitely their guy. That's what I'm expecting. So, they do bring in guys like DJ Chark, Thielen, who have been around and will definitely make the receiving core, better, because everyone, once they traded DJ Moore and half their team for the first overall pick, was like, oh shit, who's going to catch the ball? So, the Miles Sanders pickup, I like that too. I do. And the defense is actually really solid. One of the better young safeties in the league. Brian Burns, he's great. J.C. Horn, I think if he's healthy, he'll be a really good corner. One of the better young corners who will hopefully continue to emerge, and I know he's battled some injuries, but also a pretty good coach in Reich first year. Are they a playoff team? I don't know, but I think it's going to be very close between them, New Orleans, and Atlanta. It'll be like, I think all those teams will be around 8-9, 9-8.
Yeah, 8-10 wins.
There might be a 7-10 team winning that division. So
that would be insane. If we get 7-10 to win the division, that would be
definitely. So I think like maybe New Orleans will take it at 8-9. I haven't looked at their schedule fully, to predict any win totals or anything like that. But for Carolina, I think they're right around there. I think they're like a 7-10 team. Will they improve from last year? I think so. Will that affect their record? I don't know. Even if they are a better team. So that's my thoughts on Carolina.
Sure. And let's talk right in that 8.5 win total. Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
Right there. They're plus 210 to win the division. Arthur Smith, Coach of the Year, plus 1,200. He's number 3. Vegas is really high on them. Bijan Robinson, favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. This is a team in Atlanta. You got a lot of first-round picks. You get Kyle Pitts, you get London, you get Robinson. You have a third, right? Ritter was 3rd round, I think.
I think so.
3rd round quarterback. I mean, they're really going in. But let's not forget, Taylor Heineke is going to be right there behind him.
Right.
Ritter is slow, and they feel like the team is good enough. Wouldn't be surprised if Heineke gets a chance. The guys went out there. He's a winner. To me, Atlanta at 8.5, though, I don't think they're an 8. I don't think they're a 9-win team, winning more games than they lose. Have they improved? Yes. Again, they were a bad 7-10 team. These AFC West or the AFC South teams, or NFC South rather, were able to be bad teams and still win 7 games. I don't think you're getting this year. I just don't think that's the case. However, I do think Vegas did hit it right on the nose. It could be 8.5, or it could be 9, could be 8, could be 7. We kind of said it before, but to me, Atlanta is right in that cusp of if they can figure out the quarterback position, I think everything else kind of works itself out. Defensively, they were kind of in the 20 to 30 range, so they do have to iron some things out there. But I do think they're definitely on the up and up as far as where they've been in the last 3 years.
Yeah, and who knows about Ritter? He looked, I think, okay last year when he played, but he's, is he serviceable? Is he like the long-term solution? I don't know. I guess this year will really tell. But they, outside of him, like pretty good offensive line. They have a stud rookie running back who they're going to run into the ground. So I think look at all Bijan props. I'm going to circle back there.
Literally pulling them up right now.
Drake London is kind of in that Olave territory, like very good young receiver who, Garrett Wilson kind of overlooked them last year or overshadowed them. The other rookie receivers last year, that is. And then Kyle Pitts too. Like they took him, fourth overall 2 years ago?
Yeah.
He's going on third season and they haven't even, like they don't even know who he is. They act like sometimes. Like,
right.
That's the thing. You check Twitter every Sunday. It's like, where is Kyle Pitts? You see these where is Kyle Pitts memes and everything. So I can't really get that excited about them. I'm very excited about Bijan Robinson from a betting and fantasy perspective for sure. I think he's going to be absolutely stellar from the get-go. I just want to bring up the book I'm looking at has a NFL most regular season rookie rushing yards for this upcoming season. Bijan Robinson, guess his odds to win.
Minus 500.
No, minus 7,260.
Holy shit.
Jahmyr Gibbs is plus 900.
I was going to say, Jahmyr Gibbs is the only other option.
Jahmyr Gibbs is plus 900. Bijan Robinson is minus 7,260.
His total is 1,075 yards. And you're looking at an Atlanta team that was third in rushing yards per attempt last year, 4.9, just under 5 yards an attempt.
Yeah,
and they were third in rushing yards per game at 160.
Algier was great.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that moved the ball on the ground, and you picked up arguably the best running back prospect in the last decade.
Right. And I do think I think they're right there with Carolina. And, we probably won't talk about Tampa a whole lot, but no. I think they're there with Carolina where it's going to come down to the wire between Saints, Carolina, Atlanta. I don't think one team is going to have this comfortable lead, middle of the season for the division. But needless to say, it makes things a little interesting for the division. So it's pretty weak overall, but I mean, it'll probably make things fun come December. So, and all year long. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, we're not going to talk Bucks a whole lot. 6.5 wins. I actually like the under. I don't think much of Tampa Bay this year. 6.5 is a lot more. I look at Tampa's roster and outside of some good receivers, do not get me wrong, some really good receivers in Tampa, but no offensive line.
Right.
The defensive line is falling apart. The defensive front seven is just really, really bad. Last year, Tampa, a team that really took a lot of pride, had Tom Brady at quarterback. They were 32nd rushing the football in all categories. You aren't going to be a good football team being 32nd running the ball. Until Tampa can figure out some sort of balance, I'm going to be super low on the Bucks. I'm sure you're kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say here. So, Baker, I don't know.
Baker, sure, maybe,
sure,
Baker, right?
In 2023, after he bounced around last year from Carolina, and then the Rams picked him up, and now
Baker for the Rams was a wild time. We'll forget about that in a few years if he does stay like in Tampa for a little bit. We'll definitely forget about Baker.
But like kind of a hero if you bet on the Rams that one game,
100%,
90-yard drive, right?
But so as far as college football is going to go, so I'm changing things up a little bit. Obviously, next week is going to be, I can't believe I'm saying this, it's week 0. So week 0 is next week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, leading up to week 0. I'm going to be releasing conference previews, but they're going to be 60 seconds long. We're going to fly through conference previews every single day. I'm going to come out all the Power Fives, very, very brief. I'll knock it out. I'll post it on TikTok. It's tough to go through all this stuff. And honestly, college football is such a crapshoot going into the season. It's a waste of time. It's hard to go through. Before we get out of here, Joey, we had an episode of Hard Knocks. You get a chance to watch it last night?
I did not. I'm going to go do that in about 10 minutes.
You didn't miss a whole lot. For those of you that did watch Hard Knocks and some stuff, to let Joey hear some stuff for you to watch. Quinnen Williams is plus 3,000 to win Defensive Player of the Year. Might not be the worst thing in the world. He's a freak. Will McDonald, speaking of freaks, you get to see him get pierced a few times.
Okay.
But he also gets a sack in the preseason game. Rodgers, finally, we do see a little bit of salt come out because I don't know if you've heard, Joey, the offensive line in New York, it's not very good. Salah called him out in the meeting. One of my favorite quotes: "You can have a Hall of Fame quarterback, two $10 million receivers, the offensive rookie of the year, and a hell of a running back room. It doesn't mean shit if the guys up front can't get it done," which is totally right.
Yeah.
Very good way to do it. Also, my last one, and you'll see it too. Actually, two things. One, Brian Burns is wearing number 0 this year. That is going to be sick to see number 0 flying around taking Carolina. Also, the Panthers are softer than baby shit because they did not practice in the rain. So those are my notes as far as episode 2 goes. We'll talk episode 3 next week. You did watch the Johnny Manziel. I watched the blood doping one, the Barry Bonds.
That came out too, I think, this week, right?
It came out this week, and they marketed it as a Barry Bonds thing.
Yeah.
It's not very, I mean, it's all the lab. It's all about the lab. It's not as good as you'd think. But next week, Swamp Boys. 3 episodes. 3 episodes. We're going to knock those bitches out, and we will definitely talk Swamp Boys before.
For sure.
What a week to do it. Week 0.
I love it. Shout out to Netflix. That's a really good.
The hype for football this year.
For sure.
They've knocked it out. They started with QB1. They kind of warmed us up. They said, all right, it's July. Football's right around the corner. Here's QB1. Here's a little bit of that. And you're like, all right, QB1.
Yeah.
Hard Knocks comes back in. And then the Johnny Manziel documentary. Florida Swamp Boys is going to be the last little touch. And obviously we'll get Hard Knocks as we go through. But
it's great.
9 days. When y'all are hearing this, 9 days. That's all we got.
9 days. Look, all the true crimes and all the other shit on Netflix are enjoyable, I think. But I think they probably hired some people to handle their sports department or to come in and
they 100% did. They definitely brought somebody in.
Kind of shit,
I don't know who that consultant is, and they deserve a raise. And we are thankful because there's been some sick content.
Yeah.
That's really going to do it for me, man. I don't have anything else. You got anything else?
I'm good. I mean, we definitely shout out to Dan again from Sporttrade, Dan Koob.
Yeah, big shout out, Dan.
Big shout out to him. You were just talking about the Jets O-line. I want to hear what he says. So we'll have him back on for sure. He was great. We're going to have some fun people coming on soon talking about college football, NFL. Things are heating up. As you said, 9 days.
9 days, baby.
Week 0. Notre Dame, Navy in Dublin.
Damn hard football. I can't wait.
If you go into Lock Talk, you will see NFL and college. It's a beautiful thing. So I'm already seeing some people talking about what they think, what they like, what they don't like. Maybe some spam posts. We'll see. So
that's fine. Spam's good.
It's great. It's so exciting. So
all righty, man. Well, thank you all as always. We will have this posted up, ready to go Thursday morning. So tune in next week. We're going to talk some more NFL. We got college football week 0. I believe we're going to have at least one guest. Might have 2 guests next week. We will see about that. But for Joey, I'm O'Kane, and the Lock Talk fellas are out.
Yes, sir.